Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming to the Warrant Committee meeting tonight. Maybe the last meeting that we have for a little while, which would be great. I don't think that we'll be here very long, but there's been a couple of things that's come up from last week where we need to have a few short discussions and re-vote a couple of things. We're not going to have any meeting minutes tonight because I did not have time to do them this week. I needed to concentrate on the warrant itself. So that'll give us something to do the night of town meeting before we head down to the auditorium. We can vote some meeting minutes and read them before that meeting, unless we need to get together between now and then. Hopefully we won't. Does anybody have any questions on the agenda before we jump into discussing articles and budgets? No? All right. Well, I have up on the screen the latest version of the warrant, which I'm hoping to send to the printer early tomorrow morning. There's a lot of color in it. Red recommendations or recommendations we need to revote tonight. And then font that is in some different colors or things that we need to discuss. I think anything that was in blue was in a version that I sent to you earlier today. And since then, I've gotten 3 or 4 little changes. So I put those in orange so that we could discuss them tonight. Does anybody have any feedback for me on the report of the Warrant Committee? I got individual feedback from a few people, but I wanted to test the group. Yes, Ted.
I like it.
Oh, how nice.
For praise? What? He's looking for praise too? I thought it was.
It's not just negative comments.
I thought it was good. Very thorough.
Is anybody embarrassed to have their name associated with it? Because all your names are at the bottom.
No, it cuts through a lot of the weeds and gets the basic message out, and there's more information throughout the warrant if people need it.
As I told Ted, I pruned it back perhaps to the point of killing it because I took off 4 or 5 pages. But maybe as I get more comfortable in this role, if I feel like I have a little bit more command over things, maybe I'll feel better about pontificating a bit more. But this was what I was comfortable with this year, and I kind of wanted the emphasis to be on the missed opportunity of the contingent budget and what we will need to set up for next year. So I thought shortening it up in other places put the emphasis in the right spot.
I think you did that.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. All right. Well, then I'll start at the beginning with the changes that we note, starting on the the fiscal year 16 and 17 budgeted revenue tables. We noticed late in the process here that unfortunately we had forgotten to put on the Pickens $500,000 override, which changed all sorts of numbers. So that it's really an exclusion, not an override, I guess. But that exclusion is now written in, and it has changed the maximum allowed levy as well as the subtotals and the totals at the bottom of the page. Okay. Then on the fiscal year 16 and 17 expenditures table, same entry had to be made, which created some changes to the subtotals and totals at the bottom of that page. We had, yep, you have a question?
So I just want to say, this is not an appropriation, so there's nothing to vote. And it also won't show up in Table 10.
Yeah. So just to catch people up on a conversation I've been having with a few individuals in town, we've had the same moderator for a very long time. So apparently there's very few people who remember how the warrant was handled the last time. I suppose I could have gone back in the archives. But in speaking with Brian Walsh, it was his recollection that when he took over as moderator, the previous moderator wrote this letter in the warrant, and then Brian took over the next year. We're in a situation where there will be an election for a new moderator just a week before town meeting. We're going to the printer tomorrow, so there's no way for a new moderator to write a letter in the 5 or 6 days that eclipse between being elected and writing on some rules and how town meeting 2016 should go. So Brian Walsh's recommendation was he write the letter, and I was fine with that. Town council wasn't fine with it. They said, John Flynn said, really, Brian Walsh is not going to be the moderator. It's not appropriate to have the letter in there from him. So based on his concern, I went to Bob Hiss and also to Michael Chinman together, along with Brian Walsh, and the 4 of us had a discussion, and I said, well, here's the deal. Some of this is helpful verbiage to have in there for town meeting members, and Bob and Michael agreed, and they both said they thought it was fine if this letter stayed in there, and I think it was Bob Hiss that suggested we just put in the word outgoing moderator, and everybody was okay with that, of those 4 people. I sent that to John Flynn earlier today, and I haven't heard back from him, but I'm assuming he's going to be okay with that since the other group is okay with it. Okay, so that's why that is the way that it is. All right, so then I have the report of the Warrant Committee, and I'm going to skip past that since there don't seem to be any questions or comments or concerns. And then we'll get into the articles. Do you have something? You look like you have something. No. All right, so the first article that we need to deal with, I think, is Article 6, which is the capital improvement recommendation. There is a new line, or a change to this line since I last sent it out. You saw on your last version locker room roadways for renovations for $300,000. I've added /roadways to that because the plan here is that there is an outstanding quote due for the roof renovation at the DPW locker room. And when that quote comes in, it's expected to be under $300,000, but they don't know exactly the number yet, and we're going to press. So what the Capital Improvement Planning Committee voted at their last meeting was any amount in excess of the quote that comes in as final for the roof, up to $300,000 will just be directed to the roadways line. And therefore, the bottom line number will be the same, and the roads will get a small benefit. So I have fixed that on that line, and then I added a very brief sentence here, and I'm going to do a little reading to you tonight for things that I typed in. But it says, at the time of printing, a final quote to repair the roof is still pending, but the total is expected to be below $300,000. The CIPC and Warrant Committee recommend that any balance in excess of the final quote to repair the roof, up to $300,000, be directed to road repairs. It is hoped, it's assumed that by town meeting, there will be the final quote available, and the Capital Improvement Planning Committee may provide a document at that time that says, here's the exact amount, here's what's going to roads, and we may have a pink sheet at town meeting at that time. That's what we've been discussing as a possibility. The Board of Selectmen has not yet approved this. They're expected to, because the total hasn't changed and everybody's kind of on the same page. So I would like a motion to accept the recommendation as written on the screen pending the Board of Selectmen vote on April 11th.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Phil, for seconding. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, I'll go back and I will, maybe I'll just take out the highlighting now so I know I did it.
I think you don't run any risk of the Board of Selectmen not putting the balance to roads.
Right.
Your report.
I hope not. Okay. So we should all be on the same page. Great. All right, I made a small typo correction here from fiscal year 2016. I think that was from town council. It used to say from the previous year. That's my comment for Article 7. All right, and then this is the comment for Article 9. I just got this from Ted today. Has anybody had a chance to read this yet? No. I'm going to read it out loud then. The recommended contributory retirement appropriation includes not only the normal annual cost, but also the fiscal year 2017 amortization payment of the 2003 Early Retirement Incentive Program, or ERI, in the amount of $126,318, and the amortization of unfunded actuarial liability in the amount of $3,761,237. The ERI will be paid through fiscal year 2019. Full funding, excuse me, let me just make this correction. Full funding of the UAL was initially scheduled for fiscal year 16. However, due to the economic downturn and loss of value in the town's vested retirement plan assets, full funding of the UAL was extended to 2021 and then 2022. The valuation of 2013 extended the full funding of the UAL yet further until 2025. The plan's actuary warranted changes, do you want that to be a capital A? The plan's actuary warranted changes in demographic and economic assumptions based on the plan's actual experience. Does that make sense
It's
to you?
like the plan's accountant, so
Okay.
the actuary.
Oh, the actuary.
He wouldn't get a capital.
The plan's actuary warranted, got it. The changes increased in the plan's UAL. Increased the plan's UAL. To keep the cost of the plan on a basis par with the previous year's cost, the amortization period of the UAL was extended by 3 additional years, thus minimizing the impact on the town's appropriation.
Otherwise, it would have ballooned.
While the schedule has moved out, we are still well in advance of the original mandated date of 2028, and more so following the legislature's extension of the deadline to 2040. An actuarial valuation as of January 1st, 2015 was performed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Public Employee Retirement Administration Commission, PERAC. As a result of this study, a new measure of funding progress has been determined. A summary of the schedule of funding progress as of January 1st, 2015 is outlined below. The full actuarial valuation report for the Milton retirement system is available at mass.gov/PERAC. I'm not going to read you the table. You can read it. I'll leave it on the screen. Following the passage of legislation in 2011, the town and the unions found that they could negotiate changes to the health insurance program to avoid the alternative of joining the Group Insurance Commission, GIC. The employer-employee split of premiums changed from 85-15 to 80-20. In addition, other changes made to the copay and the other costs were implemented as of January 2012. These changes dramatically slowed the growth of this heretofore volatile budget. In the last several years, the town administrator and town accountant have instituted tracking techniques that have yielded more accurate and lower budget estimations. At more than $10 million, this budget requires vigilance. I'm going to add a comma there. Group insurance. Then you have the actual costs and the appropriations.
I think heretofore is one word.
Don't think, okay. You being funny?
No, I think it really is one word.
Heretofore.
Yes, well,
Volatile.
thank you.
Yeah, it's one word.
They want to hyphenate it, but I don't think that's correct.
Yeah, that,
Heretofore volatile. Okay. Great.
It's just a comment, so you
Doesn't
don't
need
have
voting.
to approve it, and it's, the first part of it borrowed heavily on my predecessor.
I have a comment on it.
Yes. What is your comment on the
I
comment?
think if you were smart, you would get Ted to agree to do this article comment again next year in exchange for an invitation to the 2017 Warrant Committee party.
The drink. Is this the one?
No, the summer party.
I already got Ted to agree to do the debt article, actually, so maybe I can extend it to Article 9. He's going to be back.
You're
as
gonna be
an
on a
honorary.
retainer.
Happy to consult.
Okay, so I'm going to make that all black then, since you're now all aware of the comment and nobody has protested it. It's happening. Okay, so in Article 10, I had a tense problem here. This was, or not a tense, but a pluralization. This said R. John Flynn changed it to is.
Good catch, John.
Thanks, John. And then here is the comment. This has been in here for a couple of days, so I'm not going to read this one off. But this is the comment for the Personnel Board. And then we get to Article 12, and this requires a new vote. Let me explain what's happened here. So inspectional services, we're going to revote with Betty abstaining, and that's part of this budget, but that's not the only reason that we're going to revote. The fire and the police line, per our discussion at the last meeting, now show overtime as part of the budget. So Ted pulled the numbers out for previous years, and I put in the one for this year. So now fire and police both have those lines in there for overtime. And I amended the comment to say as follows. Please note, the above table has been modified from previous years to display the amount of overtime in the police and fire departments. Other departments also contain overtime expenses, but they are far smaller, at least by half of those budgets noted above, and are therefore not broken out separately from the salary and wage lines. So I gave a little justification. The next biggest one that Ted could come up with was about $150,000, which is
It's actually 125.
125.
For the DPW, so if you want to change 1/2 to 1/3, you could.
okay. By at least a third.
Or 2/3.
At least by a third. Oh, 2/3, right? But they are far smaller, at least by
2/3.
2/3. 2 THIRDS. Thirds of those budgets noted above. Okay, so now Phil has a question about. Go ahead.
Perhaps Ted can answer this question. We're showing in the warrant an appropriation for 16, an overtime of $300,000
For fire.
for fire. The fire department budget that they presented to us showed an appropriation for 2016 of $425,000. $5,000.
That's correct. That's the first one they submitted, okay? I believe I think we circulated a second one, but I saw that they had boosted their overtime, and we had asked for a level.
Just note, he's
I'm not
talking
talking
about
about this year,
16.
I'm talking about 16.
He's
current
saying
year.
16 budget appropriation, right, or actual?
Yeah.
Appropriation.
They're saying that the budget, the appropriated budget
Right.
for 16 was $425,000 for
Okay.
overtime.
So, let me
Is that
explain.
the same situation?
Yeah, so what they did is they had, the fire department were the folks that had held out on negotiations with the town. So that went to arbitration, finally got settled, and then they were able to apply the entire wage set aside to their fiscal year 16 appropriation, okay? But what they did is they didn't put it all straight on officers' pay, on the officers' pay line. They put 125 on the overtime line, so that it would appear that moving forward, it was level, okay?
Yeah.
But that wasn't the case, so they resubmitted that budget, lowering the overtime by 125 and putting it back into the officer's pay line, which is where it should have been, and they resubmitted that budget to the Board of Selectmen.
Well, I think this is an excellent example of why we need to have a line item for overtime in this budget and track it going forward. And I would suggest that next year the committee ask for a 10 or a 15-year history on overtime in the fire department budget, and to have it also as a percentage of the total budget, because I think you'll see a trend that is somewhat disconcerting.
Very good.
If you're ready, then I'll take a motion on this.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Can I recuse myself just from the first line, which is in special services?
It's one.
Or do I have to
bud-
recuse myself
One
from the
budget
whole
for public
article?
safety, so,
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
sorry.
That's all right.
Move that we vote the article as written.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation? Unanimous, thank you.
One abstain.
What did you say? Oh, I'm sorry, one, not unanimous, one abstain. Almost thinking. All right, that one's done. Okay, Article 13, we need to revote this one. This is the general government. I made a quick switcheroo on this earlier today per a request from the clerk that we remove election and registration from the Board of Selectmen budget and move it down to the town clerk budget. So that required me to remove out from this line the election and registration totals, and then to put in a subtotal line for town clerk here that added together these two numbers. Okay?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, because in fact, it's not a Board of Selectmen budget.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's what we did
Right.
this year, and
So,
that's,
so now the format will reflect
yeah.
it.
in the-
So maybe I should have figured that out before, but I didn't.
No, that's what we said in the comment portion, that's what that
Yeah.
explains, so.
Do you want to make a recommendation on this then?
I move that we vote, Article 13.
Nothing changed.
Yeah, just the chart changed.
Well, the chart changed. The table is part of the recommendation.
All right?
Move that we, vote Article 13 as written.
Second.
Okay, thanks, Phil. And any discussion?
You're slow.
No? All those in favor? That one is unanimous. Even Betty voted.
It's a good move.
Okay, make that black. We're motoring, folks, we're motoring. Don't get
Make sure you
nervous.
save.
All right, so this comment is the comment for boards and committees. That's been in there for quite some time, so I'm just gonna make that black. There's no vote that's necessary for that. In Article 15, there are minor changes to the comment. It says, if the 2019 solid waste contract rises as anticipated, a rapid and dramatic increase in the trash sticker price will be necessary to offset the increase. This came from Steve, I think yesterday. He corrected a word. It said dramatic increase in the trash price, and he meant to write trash sticker price, so we rewrote that. Okay, Article 16, nothing. There is a typo here that either Ted or John noticed. I can't remember who in this comment. That was Ted, actually. And then in Article 18, which is stormwater, the numbers are highlighted simply because I changed them from the last version, so I'm going to make them black now, but there's been no changes for a few versions. And then we have the comment here. I just want to note to folks that the table looks a little different than some of the other tables because the first two columns are grayed out because there isn't a good apples-to-apples comparison for for stormwater, as noted in this part of the comment. Because associated expenses with stormwater management were previously part of DPW budgets and therefore paid through the general fund, there were no indirect costs, debt service, or associated revenue accounted. So if we were to try to show a history, it would not, it would tell an untrue story probably. So the recommendation from the Board of Selectmen and from Anne Marie was to not include any sort of and Amy, not include a history there. So it's grayed out, and next year we'll fill in the middle column, and the year after we'll fill in the rest of it. I got the roads to be worked on this year from DPW, so those have been in there for a few versions now. I'll make that black. Down past Article 23 now in the recommendation. Yes?
Can I just ask you a quick question
Yep.
about Article 22, so
22.
don't forget about it? At the bottom of the, we were recommending 914,000, right?
Mhm.
At the bottom of the comment, I just noticed that it says Milton's allocation for 2017 is 500,000.
I thought that was
Did that,
the 75% grant, but let me reread it.
it may be that that's our allocation for the
I&I is an issue for the authority.
water.
For the authority and its member communities, and consequently, order is established a 75% grant, 25% loan program for members to rehabilitate their. Okay, I will. I'll ask Steve McCurdy about that. He wrote that.
Yeah, I think he might have meant to apply that to the water article because that is for 500,000.
Okay. Steve sends his regrets, but he had to do a work event
Okay.
tonight. So I'll email him after the meeting and ask him that, but it doesn't require a vote because it's in the comment.
No, but I just wanted to mention it before we.
Okay,
moved
so there
past
is a change to the recommendation here for Article 23. Recommended the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen during fiscal year 2017 to accept on behalf of the town. I can't remember what that used to say. So I don't know if it's a material change or not. So I think we should probably we should revote it. Sorry, I don't recall why we changed it to 2017, but
Recommend we move
Yes.
to
I know.
revote Article 23 as written.
Second?
Thank you, Michael. Discussion, yes?
Yeah, I'm happy to revote it. I think probably you put it in blue because it was a change from last year's article.
Yeah.
And that was the change required. This is now gonna be pretty much a standing
Okay.
annual article, so I think you just
Yep.
highlighted it.
All right, well, just to be on the safe side, all those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Article 24, there's just a new comment in there, which has been in there since the last two versions that you've seen, actually. And then also, same story for Article 25. Everybody's had a few days to read that comment. Article 26, same deal with most of the library. I did make a change to the library today. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, Ted and I put a sentence in here, and hopefully you guys are okay with it, but it's this sentence, I think. The Warrant Committee supported the contingent budget increase, which included 2 new positions we deemed immediately necessary to meet current demands. But due to limited available funds, we ultimately decided to fund the library in line with the entire non-contingent budget. You had most of that sentence in there. We put in the 2 positions part.
That's fine.
Okay. And that was to make it congruous with the rest of the comments about other budgets that did include what the contingent request was for numbers of positions.
We didn't get our graph, but I guess I'll have to live with that.
Cemetery comment has not changed. The Parks and Rec comment has changed slightly. I added this paragraph at the end, which I'm going to read. So this is concerning the special needs line. I wrote, it was suggested at town meeting last year that because a specific line item was not included in this budget for special needs programs, that the Parks and Recreation Department was not providing any special needs programs. This is not the case. According to the department, they offer special needs programs costing between $13,000 and $16,000 each year, and these programs are entirely funded by donations, which is why there was no specific line item in the appropriations budget. Programs offered include Wednesday night gym buddy, a 1 to 2 week program in the summer with overnights, and a planned trip to Disney on Ice in 2016. The Wednesday night gym buddy program has been highly successful, and while it began with a younger crowd, some individuals have been participating for more than 15 years and it may not be as attractive to families with younger children any longer. The Parks Department is therefore looking at piloting a Tuesday night gym buddy program to specifically attract a younger crowd into a second iteration of the program. Some of the $13,000 to $16,000 the Parks Department notes is spent on special needs program comes from a specific special needs gift account, which had a balance of $15,639 at the end of fiscal year 2015. So this should answer any question in the room as to whether or not there is funding in the budget, and if there are programs that are actually being put on.
I thought that was very good.
Thank you. Phil?
Yeah, given that, I don't understand why we have the $1,000 special needs program line item. The only purpose for that line item has been because for 2 years in a row, we were accused of not funding special needs programs at town meeting. And because we did not have, in either of those 2 years, anyone from the park department to address this issue, we ended up finding one year a citizen wrote a check, and last year the town meeting voted to include it. And so we had this line item. But since we are spending considerably more than that amount of money, I don't see why we need to have a line item that really was the result of blackmail at town meeting floor, because we didn't know until this year that we were funding that special needs program at a fairly substantial amount of money. To continue to put that in there makes it somewhat confusing with the comment, first of all, because if we're spending that much already, what's the $1,000 for? And secondly, it continues to foster the idea that we're forced to add something because we were negligent in not seeing it was there. If you recall, last year at the end of the discussion of a night's town meeting, we had a former chair of this committee came down and was vehement that we should have included that in the line item. That's because we were ignorant of what the Parks Department is doing. And this year we found out what they're doing, and I don't see the need for that continuing line item.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm the guilty party who took that line item out last year, having looked at it, going, this is a $1,000 item, and, you know, they also had other stuff, and why is this necessary, you know, as a separate item in the warrant? If you want to go through the warrant, there were some other line items that I was able to trim out, but this was one of them, and it's that came back to bite me, as it were, last year, and town meeting voted to put the line item back in. Okay, so therefore, I can't take it out in terms of last year's appropriation, and therefore.
Show 0 for fiscal years.
And then what? Show 0? I mean, basically, it's their general expenses have stayed level. Okay, that we didn't add 1,000. Their general expenses stayed level, and the 1,000 would stay level.
I think what he means by that is last year we removed $1,000 from the general expense line and put it on a special needs program line, so we didn't increase the budget by 1,000.
Right.
Is that what you mean?
Right.
Are you
Exactly.
Done? Sorry.
No.
Darnell has something after you.
So.
But I thought you said you removed the line item.
I did remove the line item.
So why
but-
can't we do it this year?
Because town meeting voted to put the $1,000 line item back on. Okay? So at least I have to show it for last year as a 2016 appropriation. And so if I have to show it on a historical basis that it was there last year by vote of town meeting, it's gonna look, it's gonna look horrible to have a 0 or
Why?
nothing on there.
The comment explains that there are 15 times that much money being spent on special needs programs.
Right.
Darnell's gonna pop.
This is what's going, no, this here is one of those things where, you know what?
We
You
can't
save
win.
yourself half an hour of town meeting by putting that there. And Phil, it's explained in that comment section, it's explained very well in that comment section, but they're not gonna read that comment section until after three people got up there and stood up there and says, oh, there's a 0 here, how could you defund this? And then you get a whole hoopla going on. Whereas we had it there for the $1,000. Somebody else wants to get up and say, oh, we should be spending more than that, read the comment. So you kind of have to bite the inside of your cheek with this one and just literally,
You're condemning future warrant committees for God knows how many years to bite their cheeks over this one. When I think if you spend 10 or 15 minutes at this town meeting, you resolve it and you get beyond it. And in the future, if you want to talk to the Parks Department about having them annual report how much they're spending on that kind of a program, I think that's perfectly fine. But to wed future warrant committees to that terrible line item that they can't touch for really no good reason doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me.
Why don't you make a motion
I make a motion that we remove the line item with $1,000 in it.
and put the 1,000 in general expenses?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
thank you,
fine.
John. Discussion? All those in,
Well, yeah, I just was wondering, this park department budget has a lot of stuff that is outside of what the appropriation is.
this is my project for next summer.
And I think it's a bigger job to tell the story of what they're really doing. I mean, if we just, I'm not in favor of just moving the $1,000. I agree with Darnell that it's gonna cause a half an hour. And I think that the warrant committee in the future is probably gonna have to look at this and do some major surgery to it to kind of tell the story of what this, you know, because you wind up, I can't remember the exact numbers of how much is outside the appropriation, but it's a lot. That revolving fund is like over 100,000, right?
No.
It's like 500.
It's more like about $500,000.
It's like 500,000.
One of the
That's
amounts
5
is
times better point than it's trying to make it. Okay.
The Parks Department is huge.
Yeah.
It's the parks, and then it's essentially the Recreation Department, which is run off of 2 revolving funds. The rental revolving, which is, we're gonna have to increase, and the regular recreational revolving. And between the 2 of those, at about 500, they do generate enough surplus from their programs to fund a lot of field maintenance, about $110,000, okay?
I think what I actually was trying to do is like cut this discussion shorter and say, let's leave it alone and spend some time on it next year. And I'll be around next year if you want to, have me help out, but to tell a better story about what's going on with the Parks Department.
Darnell, do you have something quick?
Well, we could do it in
You're
the,
fine. Any other discussion?
Isn't some of this timing? Isn't it just timing, your budget?
I don't understand the question.
Well, they seem to take in revenue and then spend it the next fiscal year. Isn't that going on?
oh,
The matching situation.
well, that's, you mean through their revolving funds?
Yes.
Well,
That's how they work.
that's the nature of a summer program. You're gonna get in a lot of your money before the end of the fiscal year and then
Yeah.
spend it at the beginning of the next.
Right.
So,
But I think that's why they have so much trouble accounting for their fiscal year.
I think they don't have any trouble accounting for the general fund portion.
Right.
They have trouble accounting for their revolving funds
Yeah.
because they have a separate internal accounting system as opposed to, which they then turn over and batch through the upstairs, and, you know, the timing of those things never seems to match up,
And that's a somewhat
requires
separate
reconciliation.
conversation, but I
It
will,
is,
I will
it
add
is.
that Amy Dexter, the town accountant, did go to Dave Perdios last week, and they agreed to a new way to do this accounting going forward, and they are gonna spend down all those gift accounts and zero them out and eliminate them, and start to use the revolving fund the way the warrant committee has asked them to use the revolving fund. So hopefully that will resolve, but that is tangential to the motion. Yes, Phil?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask whether this motion creates a problem for you at town meeting. And if it
I'm
does, are
certainly
you
gonna
willing
have
to
to.
withdraw?
I'm gonna have to stand up and explain it. I think there's no question that if we take this out of the budget, somebody's gonna notice. And you know, I think I can explain it. If it's the will of the warrant committee to remove this line from the budget, I will get up and defend it. If it's not the will of the warrant committee and they wish to leave it in, then that's fine too. But I do think a consequence of us removing that line will be that we'll have to account for it on the floor.
At some point, yeah. Yeah, I withdraw my motion.
Okay, thank you.
That's
He withdrew his motion, he said. Is there any other discussion on Article 28? All right. Article 29, I unfortunately still had a typo in the school's recommendation, which Amy luckily caught. In fixing the typo, I made a typo. So, I think it's correct now. Since we're here, we'll quickly add it up. It's 4,614,300 minus 950,000.
4266.
4,266,4,300. Okay. May I please have a motion to approve approve the recommendation as written? Yes.
Yeah, I move that we approve the recommendation for funding the schools as written.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Darnell. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Sorry for the typo. All right, this comment is not changed. There's too many spaces there. The Blue Hills comment. Oh, I'm sorry, actually, there was a small change, but you folks have seen it. There was a dollar sign here where this percentage was supposed to be. I think, I can't remember who caught it, but
2.9%?
it's supposed to say 2.9%, and I corrected the sentence to say, even though their budget went up 2.9% over fiscal year 16, the allocation of costs to Milton have decreased due to the enrollment decreasing by 1 student from 52 to 51 students. I didn't have, that was 2 separate sentences, and folks were saying, why is fiscal year 17 appropriation going down if costs went up? And so I put the sentences together so that that question didn't arise again. Okay? Article 31 is consolidated facilities. We may want to revote this, but we may not have to. Let me come back to that in just a minute. The comment has not changed, so I'm going to make that black for now. So let me go to Article 32 and tell you why we may want to revote 31. Okay, Ted is going to help fill in the blanks, but in the interest of maturing debt calculation, which is not simplistic, there were a couple of assumptions made. And one of the assumptions was that we were going to ban debt at a certain point in the year, which would incur costs during fiscal year 17. It was recently discovered that that's likely not to be the case, which generated a savings, or at least less expense, of $25,476. So we had a question of what to do with $25,476 a couple of days ago. Then, very recently, Amy Dexter, the town accountant, noted, we haven't allowed for any appropriations which have been approved but not issued, so approved in prior fiscal years by other town meetings, but not issued yet, to get done during fiscal year 17. We don't know of any specifically that are going to be put out for bond, but there may be some. So we put out a question to Jim McAuliffe and asked him, does he know of any that are going to come up for bonding? And we didn't hear back from him, which isn't that unusual. But he did mention that he's had a very busy week working the counter because
Excise tax.
excise taxes are
Jeez.
due this week. So unfortunately, we didn't hear back from him, and there is the question about whether or not everybody that needed to be consulted, like DPW, et cetera, who might need to bond something, really gave thought to what they're going to bond in fiscal year 17. So Amy said maybe we should leave that $25,000 in this budget, and if we needed to, we could do a 3% transfer within the budget in order to bond something in fiscal year 17. And I said, well, that kind of strands the money there if we don't need to do that. And so I had a phone call with Amy and with Anne Marie today, and they recommended that we take that $25,000 out that we know is sort of incorrect in the calculation, and we put it into the reserve fund. And they said the reason for that would be you have a non-contingent budget when you wanted a contingent budget. You know there may be more reserve fund transfer requests than there have been in prior years. Specifically, we know there might be one for fire when we only put $75,000 to fire, but there's a bunch of others. We know that there's one coming from the clerk's office per Susan's testimony here, and there's a couple of others that are piling. Oh, that's for this fiscal year, but we know that there might be some others for fiscal year 17 that could pop up. So their recommendation was, why don't you just put it in the reserve fund instead of putting it on a specific line? Because Ted and I said, well, we could put it in consolidated facilities. We didn't get that project line to $100,000 yet, and all the money that's in there is one time. This $25,000 is actually reoccurring revenue. We could use this as an anchor in that consolidated facilities project line to say at least $25,000 of that's going to reoccur, and that would give us a foothold to start establishing that budget line item as a reoccurring line item. So that seemed like a good option. So we have three choices. One is to leave it where it is and allow them to do a 3% transfer if they need to bond something, and then if they don't, it'll flow to free cash. The other option is to take it out of this budget and put it into reserve fund, which would give us more flexibility to use it somewhere if something else came up for a reserve fund transfer, including a payment to this budget. And the last one would be to stick it into consolidated facilities on that project line item, which would sort of lock it in there, but cement a foothold there for reoccurring revenue. What is the pleasure of the group?
So you're overstating expenses by,
25,000, yeah.
so that's not
No,
right.
we had overstated.
Yeah.
What you see on the screen now would be
It's
correct.
$25,476. So the screen, is that right? Yeah, the screen is correct, but
Yeah.
our budget sheet shows that we have not yet allocated that amount of money. So to balance the budget, we have to allocate an expense equal to $25,647, whatever it is. Yes.
So the last time, Gene, that this article was voted, it was at $3,962,000. Okay? And that's when you voted it on March 21st.
Right.
Okay? And we don't need that much to cover known interest costs and debt service, okay?
But we have already added more money to consolidated.
We did add
Right.
some, but we're below our $100,000 that we were hoping for. And all the money we put in there is one-time money, so it's not guaranteed to go in there again next year.
But if consolidated facilities, I personally like the idea of the reserve fund, because if consolidated facilities had an emergency, they had to put up
They have that
a
to
new
fall back on.
generator,
Mhm.
they could come to us and, for the reserve fund, if there was an unforeseen repair they had to make. And as we did vote a, level dollar, general expense, non-contingent budget, somebody's gonna get caught short, and maybe that'll make a difference in the reserve fund.
Darnell?
So I like that idea.
I said, probably gonna have to beef up the reserve fund anyway, so this would be a nice way to add. a little
It's
bit
been
of shit.
200,000 for quite a number of years.
Yeah, but this year it's
Two.
kind of, well, for 2 years.
Oh, well, how much was
Used
it
to be
before
250.
250.
it went down.
Used to be
Yeah,
250.
I'm saying, so, no, I'm saying, this year, I think it gives the Warrant Committee going forward some flexibility and also to clean up what we know where there's gonna be some tight budgets.
Others? Yes. Chuck?
I'd like to make a motion to move the $25,000 and change the reserve fund.
Second?
Discussion? Thanks, Jim. All those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous, thank you. May I now have a motion on Article 32 for the recommendation as written?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the Article 32 as written.
Second.
Thanks, Betty. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Make that black. All right, so now we're not going to change Article 31, but I'm going to keep this note in here for a little while so that I remember the number, so that I can make that change to the reserve fund when we get down there. So I'll take that out in a bit. Okay. Article 33. I had to make a small change to this article verbiage because it referenced. This is now a new reoccurring article, a new boilerplate, and Article 33 referenced, what's the name of the fund last year that we went away?
The OPEB,
Trust.
the
fund or
OPEB,
something.
Trust fund.
trust, not trust.
It's
fund.
called Trust Fund now. It was called OPED Stabilization Fund or something like that. And last year, the town meeting voted to move the money from that old fund and put it into a trust fund. So the article still had archaic language in it that referred to that old account that doesn't exist anymore. So I took that reference out, and it now says to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate to the stabilization fund and the capital stabilization fund. Yes.
Yes, it was the Post-Employment Benefits Stabilization Fund.
Okay. So if there's somebody who is fine with that, I'd appreciate a motion to actually there is no motion necessary because it's in the article, not in the recommendation. So we're fine. And we threw that in there, which I think is not all that important, but the comment was missing of that. And the balances were received from Amy and Jim for the stabilization fund and capital stabilization fund. So I put them in here, and I think that this agrees with what Phil found the other day for the stabilization fund. It's $3.7 million as of February 28th. Okay, we changed the comment a little bit for Article 34, which is OPEB. And that was because I got the amount of the new unfunded liability as of July 1st, 2014, which is $95.5 million. And the balance in the account went up slightly, I think because of interest. It's now $540,703. Okay, so I added that in there.
On our way.
We're almost there. Okay.
Just call it 95.
Everybody has seen this reserve fund, and now we need to make a slight change to this. So it used to say recommended that the town appropriate 597,445. Ted, do you have the number off the top of your head, or should I go back up and look at it?
Well, we know it's
25,476.
476, yes. Thank you, Mike.
I'd be awake here for this.
25,476
Yes.
plus 25,476 is equal to 622,921. For the reserve fund for extraordinary unforeseen expenditures for the 12 months, and that to this money is all coming from the levy, right? So it's
Right, so it's gonna be
25. 476.
476 to be raised from the tax levy.
476 is to be raised from the tax levy, and the balance for Hendry's is coming from the town meeting fund.
397,445.
So what do I have to then go and change? I have to change table 10
You had to change the comment, too.
Yeah, we have to change the comment.
and the comment, and then table 5. There's one other table.
No, that's for last year's
Okay.
reserve fund activity, is that table.
What about
So
the
it's-
two in the front expenditures?
Yeah, we have to change that.
Front.
We have to change the line for the reserve fund, and we have to change the total so that it will match the revenue. Because right now, those two numbers are different by that amount, 25,467.
Maybe you can stay with me after for 10
476.
minutes and we can figure that out. Do you mind?
Possibly.
All right, I'll do it myself. He's been no help to me this week. Just kidding. He's been at my house more than anybody else. Okay, if everybody is fine with that math, then I would appreciate a motion on Article 35.
Recommend that Article 35 be voted as reworded.
Second.
Thank you, Michael. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Yeah, color in your comment though, right, to some other font.
It's black right now, is it not?
Yeah,
Did
change
you-
the 200,000, that'd be
did you change the
225,
200?
476.
Oh, change it,
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
I wrote it down as one of the things I have to go back and,
Never mind.
make an adjustment to, but it says, this
That's your
request
system
from the
of
warrant
color
committee includes
coding?
2 components, 2,
25,
25,
476.
476, for extraordinary unforeseen circumstances. Does anybody want me to specifically spell out that we moved that money from the debt article in
No.
there?
No.
I don't think we need to. Okay, great, thank you. So Article 36, we need to revote this one because I made a typo on the fly when we were in the meeting last week on this $1,000. It said 25 at one point, we made it 1,000. I think I didn't save the change or I backspaced or something and it wasn't correct. So it was supposed to be 1,000, we all agreed it would be 1,000.
Yeah.
It is 1,000 now, sorry for that mistake. However, that's not the only reason we're revoting this. We're revoting this because there's been a long discussion with the town accountant who has to justify these reserve fund withdrawal limits and the Parks Department. And everybody now agrees that with the new plan moving forward of closing down those gift accounts and correctly using the revolving fund, that if it is used correctly, they will need a withdrawal limit of $100,000. So Amy spoke against it the last time she was here. She now agrees that it is the right thing to do now that she is fully informed of what the plan is. And those are the only 2 changes to this table. So I would appreciate a motion on the recommendation.
So move,
As written.
as written.
Thank you, Michael.
Second.
Second.
Jean got there. Thanks, Jean. Any discussion on Article 36 as written? Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Black. Okay, this comment for Affordable Housing Trust has not changed for a couple of days. I'll make it black. Similarly for the road. All right, so on 0 Alvin Avenue, there is going to be a motion on town meeting floor to amend the recommendation to remove mention to the Affordable Housing Trust. Cindy Christensen is gonna offer it. She emailed me in advance and asked me if I would weigh in on the language for the motion, and she also copied Tom Hurley. I chatted with Tom Hurley on the phone and I said, it sounds like, Tom, you're in agreement with this. And he said, yes, I am, it's fine. We found out after a site survey that the lot is probably very unbuildable. It has a major sewer line that runs through it and an easement, and it would be super expensive to make affordable housing on this lot. So they're likely to do something else with it. And so they don't need the language in there that would move it to the Affordable Housing Trust. But if in the case that they wanted to move it to the Affordable Housing Trust in the future, he said they could just resubmit it to town meeting. But he said that that's unlikely, and there are some that are concerned about it. So he was fine with removing it. I asked him if he would get me the language that he thought was appropriate, and I think he didn't hear back in time from everybody, so it didn't make it into the warrant, unfortunately, for printing tomorrow. I told him that I would have everybody discuss this tonight and revote it if that was our desire to take out the Affordable Housing Trust, but I didn't hear back from him. So I also chatted with Katie Conlon. She also agreed that that was fine if that's what the warrant committee wanted to do, that based on the meeting that Tom Hurley had with the neighborhood, the folks from the abutting properties, and the site survey that they did, that seemed to make the most sense, was to remove the Affordable Housing Trust mention. So I don't have the new language that was agreed to. This is likely to have a motion on the town meeting floor, and I for one would be fine with that motion, and so was Tom, but we just don't have it in time for tonight. Okay?
Yeah, I was at that meeting,
Yeah.
and it's basically, I mean, Joe Lynch said he's an engineer and nothing is never not buildable, but this is really a big deal to build on that lot.
Yeah.
And so, we probably should change our comment and just take out that this would be a good use of the,
I agree.
That was gonna be my recommendation, to
change our comment. to
change
get
the
rid of-
comment.
I'm just looking to see if it was easy for me to just delete this line, if it still made sense.
Well, I think you want to take out the,
I was wondering if we could change the
Well,
recommendation.
Because our recommendation, I see, yeah, that,
Well, we could change the comment to
Yep.
no recommendation at this time.
I think the
mean,
regular
because
color blue would be good to take out.
Does it still make sense? Recommended that the town vote to transfer care, custody, and control of the land described below to the Board of Selectmen
The
for
Board
the
of
purpose.
Period.
There you
Done.
Yes, we gotta get rid of below, because there ain't no below. Good catch.
They're described below to the Board of Selectmen.
A parcel of land. Then you go all the way to a parcel of land.
So should it be comma a parcel of land?
go. Yeah, I guess we have to get rid of our period.
Recommended that the town vote to transfer care, custody, and control of the land described below to the Board of Selectmen. A parcel of land on Alvin Avenue containing approximately 200 acres and approximately, as shown in, that does it for me.
Yeah. Agree.
Does the other people okay with that recommendation? You don't want to change it?
I'm gonna go get rid of that below, because that below don't.
Well, a parcel of land is, I mean, the description is,
Description,
the description is
described
immediately
here?
following.
All right,
So
okay.
that is below,
Control of land described,
as a parcel.
recommended the town vote to transfer care, custody, and control of the land described to the Board of Selectmen. I'll put in a colon.
hold, there you go,
A parcel of land on Alvin, yeah.
there you go.
People like that?
Fine.
Could I have a motion?
I move we accept the recommendation as written.
Thank you, Michael.
Second.
Thank you, Betty. Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. So, the parcel land for okay. Article 25.
I think you ended after the 0 Alvin Avenue.
Yep.
That's it? Happy?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Just shortened it by, we might have just saved some cents by shortening.
Save
the
some money.
Parcel of land on-
Same time.
You want to change it again? We've already voted, Ted.
What don't you like?
This is great. This is absolutely great, because we don't have to have a pink sheet or a green sheet or a
Hopefully.
yellow sheet.
That's my goal, is no
Right.
pink sheets.
We don't have to have an hour discussion about it.
So long as
That's my
town
goal.
council accepts our recommendation.
Okay.
Right.
All right, Article
That's great.
39, there was a typo in the word renovation here. It's corrected. Renovation, same in the recommendation, but since it was a typo, we don't need to revote that. The comment is the same as it has been for quite some time. Article 40 is bed and breakfast. This is the comment. It's been like this for a long time, so I'm going to make that black. Article 41 is the tax. Okay, we need to vote on this. So, Steve McCurdy made the observation that this would accept Massachusetts general law that enacted a tax, and that therefore it should probably come as a recommendation from the, or be submitted by the Board of Selectmen. So I followed up with Town Council. John Flynn agreed with that and said really it should come from the Board of Selectmen. So we had previously recommended that this be referred to the Planning Board pending a discussion about whether or not we should just recommend it be enacted by town meeting, because the planning board had said it would be nice to have this tax in place in case we're able to tax Airbnbs, or if a bed and breakfast actually could be possible under existing bylaws, as may be the case because of a loophole. But now that town council has weighed in and said really they're not the appropriate submitting authority, that's probably not a good idea. So my recommendation is recommended that the town vote to refer the subject matter of this article to the Board of Selectmen for further study. May I have a motion?
You may.
What is it?
I move that we accept that recommendation as written and send it back to the Board of Selectmen.
Second to the.
Not back, but to.
Thank you, Betty.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. All right, 42 is the non-conforming bylaw. I don't think there's any change to that. The comment has been the same for quite some time, so I'm going to make that black. Article 43, the comment has been the same for quite some time, so I'm going to make that black. I have an extra space here. Article 44 is the dog leash law, and I don't think that there's any change to that. Comment's been quite stable. Article 45, there are some changes to this. Okay. So, because this is a citizen's petition, there are special requirements for how the article itself needs to be written. And the top 10 signers need to be listed. So I got those names from the office today, and I have typed those names in here. So these are the first 10 people, yes?
This is minor, but Elliott Street is spelled two different ways in this. I
Thank you.
noticed.
That's not
I
minor.
think it's one.
E-L.
I think it's one L.
That is a
Correct.
mistake that I wish not to make. Thank you. Okay. So the second recommendation from the town clerk was that the way that the playground planner group submitted this citizens petition, this paragraph right here was attached or directly followed this language, which was their article language. So this is like some background information on the group. It should not really be part of the article, but the town clerk said since it was as part of the citizens petition, we really should note it in the warrant. So we agreed to put it in the comment, and I wrote in here, submitted by the Milton Playground Planners. So it's now part of the comment. It's in quotes. It's from the Playground Planners. Hopefully everybody is okay with that. So that's the only change here. It gives a little history on how they came together and what their purpose is and the total amount of money that they're trying to raise, which is in agreement with what I wrote. Yes?
Sorry,
sir.
one more.
Yeah.
Is it 16 Standish something, or is it just 16 Standish?
Standish Road.
Standish Road.
It's road.
Thank you.
It's contribution.
You're all
Yes,
over
that's
the
it.
Contribution we both have.
I love that spelling.
what you did.
That's good.
I think so. Why, did you have it? Was I
Yeah.
copied on it?
It's the no park
I
commission.
think, so. Well, I don't know, but is this what you've got now?
I think, yeah, I think so. Is the names below here? Yeah, that's what I got today.
Okay.
All right, and then we have some tables at the back. I don't think there's been any changes to most of these. We are going to have to make a change to table 10, but since it's a non-voted thing, we don't have to drag everybody through that. I'll hang out for a few minutes if people want to leave, and I can make those changes. So let's talk about schedule for a few minutes. Town meeting is on May 1st, I think, right?
Second.
It's on May 2nd. It's May 1st next year, I think. So it's on May 2nd, which is a Monday. And I do not at this time see a reason for us to meet between now and then. Neither does Ted. So the only reason why I think we would need to meet is if something comes up between when we submit this warrant to the printer tomorrow and the printing proof comes back. If somebody says, oh my gosh, we didn't get the right amount of money appropriated to one of these budgets, or there's some other major problem that popped up, I would have to call a meeting so that we could make a vote. But if that doesn't happen and it's just little run-of-the-mill typos that we're finding in tables and stuff, I can probably make those changes and just send it out to everybody as an FYI with the font color changed to show you what changed. And then if we needed to, we can ratify something closer to on the night of town meeting if we needed to, like we usually do for a pink sheet if we want to do capital improvement with the specific number for the roof or whatever. So I just wanted to discuss that for a minute. Is anybody else uncomfortable with that plan? Not scheduling a meeting now? We would plan to meet about a half an hour before town meeting on that Monday, and I'll be in touch via email if for some reason something comes up between now and when we finalize with the printer next week.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I think we have the planning board to thank for our time off here.
Yeah, since there's nothing that we're having no recommendation at this time, we don't need to process through
Right.
anything during the month of April, which is great.
That's good.
Okay.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm really happy. As you'll note, or maybe as you saw in the report of the warrant committee at the end, I recognized everybody here and noted that I'm well over 100 hours since July, and I know everybody else is approaching. Just with the meeting times, we're over 80 hours of meetings. So 30 meetings, 80 hours, that's pretty impressive, and thank you all very much for your time and dedication to this. I feel like it's warranted now every time somebody gets up and says, the warrant committee is the hardest working committee in town. We're pretty hard working. I haven't been on every other committee, but it's a dedicated group and a lot of time, so thank you, everybody. I think we're done.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Sure. Michael, I think you seconded it.
I'll second it, sure.
Oh, you want the credit?
No, I'll take.
Second. All right, all those in favor?
Adjourn, I'm happy.
We are adjourned. Thank you.